I want to talk about two separate jobs, and we got to both of these in the same day. This job was a couple of carob trees that needed to be removed, and my first thought was I understand the value of this lumber, and unfortunately you can see how this trunk grows in a twisted form. Sometimes you'll see certain varieties of tree that when they grow the trunks will twist, and that will translate into the lumber. So if you were to cut flat boards out of it, all those boards would twist. And the other carob tree did have a straight trunk, so I'm going to save about a 5-foot section of this. I've got a buddy that just bought a new bandsaw mill, so I'm going to take it over and I'm going to make some carob wood boards out of it. Not quite sure what I'm going to do with it. Maybe jewelry boxes or, small bits of furniture. But a carob tree is kind of an interesting tree. Both of these are male trees, and the male carob tree does not bear fruit. There's a couple of areas where the branches got quite heavy, and you can see they split and healed and split and healed. Because this is in a parking area, the owner of the property was getting pretty frustrated with things falling on the cars and starting to lift up the paving and the walkway, and he wants to put in a hedge here that blocks the neighboring property. This is kind of cool here. I got the old 500i out, and I shouldn't say old. It's about 2 years old now, but it's still just a screaming saw. I really enjoy running this saw. This is the first saw that I've ever bought that doesn't have a carburetor. Fuel injected saw. You see I've got the bar upside down. It's a good idea to rotate the bar every couple of sharpenings or so that the bar wears evenly on the top as well as the bottom. So if you just keep the bar the same all the time, you'll get a little bit of a mushrooming that goes on one side of the bar. This is one of those featherlight bars, and I don't know how well they wear compared to a regular bar, but trying to take care of it. I'm making kind of a narrow wedge cut on this one because I'm trying to salvage as much of the trunk as possible. It's got quite a lean to it, so I didn't need to go too deep here. Gotten it real close to the ground. Very, very hard wood, this carob, but it has a beautiful color to it. Bowl turners really love this wood. I'm going to speed things up here. You don't need to see me cutting for so long. Through the magic of editing, I can speed this up, but I can keep the sound the same so it doesn't sound like a high-pitched screaming saw. One thing I wanted to talk about was before I cut this down, I did have to get some weight off on this one side because there were some things that we needed to protect. So I cut all the stubs off so it wouldn't punch holes in the asphalt. There was quite a bit of rot in the center of this tree, and there was a noticeable crack. That did not happen when I cut it down. That was already there. So I guess it was a good decision after all. The color of the wood, it's got a real magnificent marbling look to it, and it's got streaks of browns and tans and orange, and the sapwood is white. As you go further up the tree, then all the wood becomes white. It's just the trunk wood that has this coloration to it. I've given out lots of bits of firewood over the years to wood turners, and carob wood is a favored wood, and I've seen some absolutely gorgeous bowls made out of carob wood. So here I want to show you what it looks like with a little bit of water on it. You see the streaking that's going on there. And when you finish these off with a little bit of oil, they're just a magnificent piece of wood. So I put the word out, and I had a whole bunch of turners show up. Amazingly, almost every single bit of this went away, with the exception of the piece that I wanted to save. So I did end up cutting this trunk up, cut it into pieces and halved them so that the wood turners can take them away. Felt kind of ashamed, but I was going to make some absolutely beautiful bowls. There's a bit of a crotch there. I was kind of curious what the crotch would have looked like in there. Hopefully some bowl turner recognized that and is going to do something magnificent out of it. And this was actually the second job of the day. The first job was finishing up all these Italian Cypress. So I didn't get both of those Carobs done. I had the job. This was kind of an interesting job. It was in the same complex. The owner of this property had us top these trees because every time the wind blew, it was banging on the top edge of the building and causing considerable damage. And I'll show you the damage further along. I told him he ought to just get rid of them, and he says, no, just take them down to the building height. And if you've ever worked on Italian Cypress, they are dirty, dirty, dirty trees. And these 3 corner trees were just loaded with squirrels' nests. There must have been 6 or 7 squirrels' nests up there. So while I was working on these trees, I tell you, I felt like I was getting covered with fleas and all the crap from the squirrels and everything that was coming down. The squirrels were using all kinds of plastic bags and papers for some of their nesting material. And it's kind of a nuisance job. It's not just a single trunk that you can cut. It's multiple trunks, and there's generally one single leader trunk that's the biggest one. I'm going to show you this little bit here. And I was able to cut off a lot of the side stuff, but I was using the bucket. This job would have been a nightmare without the bucket. I mean, they say you can't climb them. They're just unbearable. I shouldn't say can't, but it was kind of interesting cutting these sections here. And I had to make sure that I was separating because they intertwine. So in order to cut this one piece down, I had to make sure that there was nothing that was grabbing hold of it. So I want you to take note of this cut. I made a nice, quick, clean cut. Got my wedge ready. I did have a rope up on the top so the guys could pull it a little bit. But it's very important not to stop. I wanted to show you this little stub here that I cut. And there you can see a little bit closer. I did not stop as I was going through, because if I'd have slowed down when it started going, the side bark would have held on and it would have just pulled this back into the plant rather than falling free. And there was a bunch of landscape plants that I wanted to protect down there. So I know people really frown on doing one-handed work, and I don't really know how I could have done this without managing. I wasn't making any cuts that were so big that I would hurt myself. I was making lots and lots of little cuts, but I was being extremely careful because you can really hurt yourself if you get in a hurry here. There you can see on the ground the length of that last top. There was a big piece that came out of there. But, these things they're sticky, they're dirty. I've got these thin gloves that are on. Kaylin showed me these gloves. I really like them. You can use the chainsaw with them without it impacting the trigger. And it's so nice when you're working with sticky stuff. I tell you, I was itching for hours on this job. I was getting that stuff under my collar and on my wrist, and it was just terrible. I had 9 of them to do. I got 7 of them done the first day. I had to come back to get the last 2. Another problem that I had to deal with was I didn't realize that there was a senior center and a facility for taking care of handicapped people. So we started the job in the morning, everything was going great, and then all of a sudden it came about 11 o'clock, it came drop-off time, and busload after busload and taxi and people dropping off their old parents and these young people that needed to be cared for all day long. So we had about 45 minutes of drop-off time, and then we had another break, so we had to kind of time our lunch. And then at about 3 o'clock, all these vehicles came back to pick everybody up. So we had all these these things that stalled us out. I'm sure we could have gotten all 9 of them done in one day if I didn't have all these people constantly coming through. When you're working in complexes or business parks, or in this case, it's sort of it was actually right behind a Harley-Davidson dealership. There's lots and lots of other small businesses. It's a good idea to really pay attention to what types of businesses they are and get a good idea of what kind of traffic you may have to deal with during the day. I wasn't thinking about it, and when I went out and looked at the job to bid it, there wasn't any cars there. Underneath the trees was a fire lane, fortunately, so there was no parking on this side, but I was constantly having to ask people to move their cars on the other side so other cars for dropping off could get through. As you know, I don't like topping trees. I don't think it's a good idea, but when the alternative is removing the tree, well, at least they've got some greenery there. I still think they should have just gotten rid of these things. They were the wrong tree in the wrong spot. He could have put in so many better choices, but they didn't want to. Like I said, they were just full of rodents. There was rats up there as well as squirrels, and dirty, dirty trees. I think they might be a fire hazard too. There was a huge homeless problem in this area. A lot of homeless people were camping out underneath the bushes of a lot of these things. So they're trying to keep things raised up and clear so people don't have places to hide. That edge on that building, I had to be really careful not to drop anything on the other side because it could have punctured the roof. These things were quite heavy, even a 6 or 8 foot piece. They had a kind of an action where they were spearing down. But the edge of this building is actually styrofoam with a thin coating of concrete that goes over it. And I'll show you some stills at the very end. And as the wind blew, it was damaging this little edge all the way around and compromised the integrity of that part of the building. I don't know if water would seep down and get in through the building, cause further damage or not, but he didn't want to keep these trees constantly blowing in the wind and then banging the side of the building. So I did have a few small pieces. I had to get up on the roof and go all the way down and pick up all the debris that I did knock down. And here's where there was damage. I think there was about 7 or 8 places where the building was being compromised. Like I said, that's just styrofoam in there. I hope you enjoyed this little video here. I don't know how helpful it was to you, but please subscribe and like the video if you like it.